And here we are, hopefully. Good evening, AJ. Thank you for your first comment on the chat. Welcome back to more SimRail. Today, less fun, no multiplayer, but single player, and we have to endure me looking into Polish speed signaling. Interesting thing, and it will expand our videos about Polish signaling. We have one of them so far, and the other two about safety systems, and today we are talking more about signaling, speed signaling. And for that, I want to run one service from Sędziszów to Staszic, I think, is the last station that we will encounter. Yeah, I'm not wanting to go into multiplayer, I said, and where did I go to multiplayer now? Here, Sędziszów to... This is the one, I think, yes, to Katowice. Staszic on the Dragon. I think, after all, my favorite locomotive. I've learned to like the other locomotives during our 750 subscribers on YouTube special stream. But still, the Dragon or the Dragon 2 are, I think, my most favorite locomotives here in the game. They are just so super cozy to play and to drive, and they have ETCS. And they look nice on top of everything. So we're running the secondary line that's in the game reverse, not from the coal mine to Sędziszów, but from Sędziszów back. And why are we doing this? Because we have so many different speed changes on that route. It's altogether the slower route, but we see almost all the different speed signaling things.
Today you will drive cargo train from Sędziszów to Katowice Muchowiec Staszic, beginning with checking the radio connectivity with a dispatcher.
Yeah, that's what we are supposed to do. For that we enter our locomotive. We have seen this single player mission already on the last on last stream, because it allows us to go through the setup procedure. We have a cold and dead dragon here to play with. So we activate cabin first. We hit twice this button, and we most probably can enter the data for the ETCS, what is not so super important because there is only a very short part where we run on ETCS. If at all, train running number would be nice, 245001, and that's all we need, I guess, and we can not start with the train data so that the train knows who we are. So ETS is up and running. For some reason this does only work if you use the keyboard short. Some lights maybe. Forward. Full braking. Yeah, this does not make sense before we actually get some power for the compressor, otherwise we won't have enough air to fill our... So we have contact with the overhead catenary. Close the main switch, it is closed. And now we should be able to fill the brake pipe properly. By the way, let's get rid of this part of the HUD. Should see it on the pressure gauges here.
Sędziszów to 245001 radio check.
This is Sędziszów. I read you loud and clear.
Sędziszów 245001 is ready.
Thank you. Wait for signal.
And here is our signal. We still have our parking brake on, so that is what we still have to release. Here you can see parking brake is off. Signal allowed us to go. I set the AFP to 40 because that is the speed limit that we are getting here. Well, let's not get rid of it because I always want to compare what the game is telling us about. So 40. Don't know what track limit is valid here, but this is our starting signal that is giving us a 40 and go. And let's release the loco brake. And this indicator goes off. Or did I forget? Did I not? Properly set the reverser. Reverser setting you can see here on the screen. Forward. So, signal speed limit. Yellow on the bottom, giving us a 40 restriction. The signal is giving us another 40 restriction. When does it end? If we're getting a new signal or if it is an exit signal, as far as I understood that, as soon as we are out of the switches, but we will talk about this in the presentation in a bit. Speed signaling in Poland, from what I think that we should talk about, is the speed signaling that we get from the color light signals, then the speed signaling that we get from the track speed limits and the signage connected with it, and then permanent and temporary speed restrictions with those diamond boards pointing downwards, pointing upwards, and then actually diamond boards, triangle boards is probably the better word for it. So, at some point here we will see an increase from 40 to 100, I think. Here we saw it, and this is when the train cleared the interlockings after the 40 and go signal. That means now we can accelerate to 100. That might actually be, I'm not entirely sure, the max speed for our consist here. That is obviously the maximum, regardless of what the signals say. And what the HUD is telling us, that we are getting an increase in track speed limit to 120, and that we are running up in 8 kilometers though to a signal speed limit to 40. So this 120 is connected with this Vizcashnik 27A. Train has to pass full length though before you can see an increase. If at all, we will see if our train can go faster than 100. At any rate, maybe it can go at least 110. We are 371 meters long. So it takes a bit, but still, maybe this is our top speed, regardless of the signal speed limit and the track speed limit, because we cannot see any increase, and we should have seen an increase because now the train has most probably cleared the 120 sign. This here we would not know in real life because we are far too far away from the signal. So we would go until we get a distance signal that is connected with it. Most probably because there are no automatic signals in between. So now our speed limit is 100. What is the speed limit for our train, our consist, that we cannot go beyond, even though the track speed limit at the moment is 120 and we do not have the signal speed limit. For the cruise control system, sometimes need to increase it a bit beyond your target speed because otherwise it might not lead it up to. Well, sometimes it's also the throttle setting. Now the HUD added an 80 incoming 3.3 kilometers. What will be relevant for us, and then increasing back to 100 shortly after. So this will be a speed limit that is communicated with signs, not with signals, but with signs. But we will typically get an announcement of it in the signage 1 kilometer before it actually starts. Here our level crossing guy. Cannot set it to 100 straight. Stay wherever you want to stay. So now we can watch out for the announcement for the 80 sign. On a heavy freight train we might actually want to coast towards this already. And here is an announcement to 100. And here's an announcement to 80. So we are getting two announcements shortly after the other. We will see on the presentation how this makes sense. Now we're also getting into a dead section. Honk board. And here is the announced 100. That was the reduction in track speed limit. And here is the reduction to 80. Overlapping speed restrictions or speed limits. One that is coming from the track speed lower to 100. Did not really hurt us because we can't go faster as a train of that kind than 100 anyway. And here ends the 80, and we are getting the distance signal with the announcement of a slow speed by the signal will be the 40. So there is no point in waiting until the train has passed the end 80 sign, because we will have to slow down for the 40 anyway. There's a flashing repeater. Last repeater, you can see it in the number 1 in Roman numbers. And here's the signal 40 and stop. That is giving us the 40 that was announced already 8 kilometers far. and now here it will drop to 40. Pok.
Train 245001, please report to station Kozłów.
Now we're getting some scripted happenings.
Reporting.
245001, further right will happen on left track number 2.
To Tunel on the left track.
Alright, we're still running under caution. We can see that the signal has already changed in our HUD, but we are not seeing the signal yet. We're getting speed limits, or here an increase and then drop in line speed limit announced. And the dispatcher told us that we're going into the left track. You can see that we're actually moving to the left. Here's where the dispatcher lives, that we just talked to. Below, you can see his potted plant. Actually not sure at what point we would change our light setup. Maybe when we're passing the signal that is giving us the instruction to go into the left track. Now be on the lookout, not too fast, because we are still running under caution. Until we see the signal, we cannot rely on anything anyone told us that the signal will be cleared. But on the other hand, we are not supposed to block the tracks here in Kozłów station too long. Here are balises for the ETCS. And actually we're not picking it up. Yeah, maybe for the other direction, or the opposite direction. Relevant for us is still the 40 that we got on the home signal, and now we see the signal. We see we don't have to stop at this signal, but we are getting... That's a bit weird, right? It is actually showing us a 40 because there is no yellow band, but the game is telling us we should get 60 at this signal. And here is the Vizcashnik that sends us to the left track. So I don't know, is that a special situation because we're getting 60 here, or is it just the bug that the red light or the yellow band is not lighting up. Now I'm switching to the light configuration for the left track. And you might have noticed that we did not have to pass the signal with our full train. It switched to 60 immediately as soon as the tip of the train passed the signal. On this screen we can check, yes, our light configuration is correct for the left track. You might have just seen that track speed increased to 120. Now it is announced that it will decrease to 110 again. What altogether is not so super important for us because, as I have said before, our train is limited to 100 anyway. And as promised, we are on the left track. Track speed increased to 100, or limit increased to 100. What is again not track speed is higher, 120, getting limited to 110, but our train is limited to 100. And the 60 that we got from the signal actually ran out because our train cleared the last switch. Here is the Vizcashnik 27A for the announced 110. City Radar, das ist meine Verspätung. Wir bitten um Ihr Verständnis. Nice to see you. Now that I didn't understand. What did I say? Wir bitten um Ihr Verständnis. We ask for your understanding would be the literal translation. That's what they typically say on the announcements if they say that the train is delayed or has been cancelled or whatever. Wir bitten um Ihr Verständnis. We are on a piece of track that has automatic signals. This is why we're getting the yellow VMAX signals, telling us that we are approaching one of the last automatic signals that is already not full green anymore, but does not have a speed limit in its own. See? Announcing a stop at the next signal and telling us with the Viscashnik 18 that it is the last automatic signal. For all that we know, we have to stop at the next signal, even though we can already see it flashing a bit, but only with the signal enhancer. What I did not see, but maybe I just missed it, was the announcement for the 90 reduction in track speed. So this signal here behind the tunnel, that is really hard to see, isn't it? Here is the beginning of the 90 in the tunnel without a 9. But it must have been announced before. And now we have to be really careful whether this semi-automatic signal is showing us a red. No, it is giving us a flashing yellow, telling us to be slow at 60 at the next. I think it is 60 from my route knowledge. 60 or 40, or what is it giving us? No, it's a 40 because we're going the other way. Then we can accelerate a bit to clear the line and be able to slow down. So now I can read the chat a bit. Do they also say for international trains that they arrived delayed from another country? No, they don't say that in Germany. They say that in Switzerland though. Der Zug hat 20 Minuten Verspätung wegen Verspätung im Ausland. Yeah, they say so. They don't have to explain the reason, yes. And Ravenslochty, hey! Nice to see you. Sorry for missing your stream on SimRail signaling. I was busy doing SimRail signaling. All good. But you can do both. .40 and go. And we're going back most probably to a right track, so that we will have to change the light configuration again. No, not off completely. dead zone. Track limit 100. Obviously we have to clear the switches for the 40 limit to run out. At least we can apply power again. I've traversed the dead zone. And then we will probably see the limit in the bottom right corner switch from 40 to 100 in a bit. No, it's switching to 60. Can't tell you why it switched to 60 at this point. Maybe there was still some overlaying limit to 60 because the line speed is already higher than that. And the signal speed, it cannot be. The beauty of the HUDs, the CD radar, yeah. Actually, this is what the HUD is good for, to see what the game is actually doing and what the game thinks that is the relevant speed restriction. At the moment the HUD is telling us that we are approaching a limit to 40, what we should know from our far plan anyway. But here we actually also get it announced, the 40 limit, 1 kilometer before we get there. And so we're getting closer to that. At the same time we're getting a 50 limit announced. So 40 announced, 50 announced. What is the charm of the Polish signage for the speed limit? That we get both. And here we get a 40 announced again. So we have three announcements before anything happens. So let's see what actually is happening with those three announcements. We got an announcement for 40, an announcement for 50, an announcement for 40 again. And a bit prematurely I'm slowing the train down to 40, because that was the first thing that was announced. And here it is, a very short piece of track, beginning of the 40, end of the 40, but obviously the train in this case has to clear the second sign. Then the second thing that was announced was a limit to 50, and that corresponds to this line speed decrease to 50, from 60 to 50. Doesn't hurt us at the moment because we are still in our 40 limit. And here is another 40 limit, that one that was announced before. So we had announcement 40, 50, 40, and three limits that are now taking effect 40, and we have to clear this sign with our whole train. That is close to 400 meters, 36 on the hectometric boards, and at about 40 it snapped back, and then to 50, because then the reduced line speed limit will take effect. Should do that a bit before we get to the 40 board, because our train is not entirely 400 meters long, and here it is, snapped to the 50. So that all happened as expected, and what we also already saw in action was overlaying speed limits. And now part one of the presentation, if I can find it, I will show it to you. So where is my OBS presentation? Can I get it here? Yeah, here it is. So speed signaling, especially two parts. One is the speed signaling that we get from our color light signals, and the other one is the speed signaling that we get from the speed boards. So the color light speed signaling we have already had a look at the better part of it when we looked at the half automatic signals, semi-automatic signals that are quite similar to the German HL signals and other signals that were used in Eastern Germany and Russia. They have a bottom part and a top part. We remember that, and the bottom part can give us a speed restriction, giving us a yellow lamp, non-flashing on the bottom, and then it depends on whether you're getting a green band, yellow band, or no band at all, with the signal limiting you to 100, 60 or 40. 100 now, and what you have to expect on the next signal that is told to you by the upper half of it. So we have talked about this on our Polish signaling stream 1. 100 now, 60 now, 40 now. This is why I always say like 100 and go, 60 and go if the light is green on the top. If it is flashing yellow, it will be 100 and slow, 60 and slow, and if it is steady yellow, then it will be like 100 and stop, 60 and stop, and so on. So the actual order to stay below a certain speed limit is in the bottom half. So that allows us to slow down the train to 160 and 40. But what do we do if we want to slow down the train to a different value, like 80, 90, 120, 50 or so? Is that possible? Not with the signals alone. We don't have different signal aspects for that, but we can modify our signal with a Signage, with an indicator that comes with it. So if we use, for example, the 40 now signal and put a plate with a white 5 on a black background on it, then we can upgrade this 40 now signal to a 50 now signal. This plate is called a Signage V21 in this context, and it can upgrade signals, and you would always find it in a way that you use the color light aspect that is just below the speed that you want to order, and with 50 this would be the 41, and so the 40 signal can be upgraded with this Signage to a 50 now signal. And this can be like a plate that is always there. If there's only one path behind that signal, that is always okay to go with 50 kilometers per hour. And it can also be like an indicator that can be lit or not lit if there are different paths starting at this signal, and some of them should be limited to 40, some of them should be limited to 50, so you can just light it up according to the path that you set as a traffic dispatcher. Same thing happens with the 60. You can upgrade them with 70 and 80 boards, and even with a 90 board, and then you have covered the 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. Then you would have the clear 100 board, and this one in general you can upgrade to 110, 120, 130, 140, 150. 160 would not be a speed limit again, because that would be most probably the ceiling speed anyway, so it would be a green signal and no speed limit at all. If all those exist, I don't know, but that is what logic more or less dictates what is possible with this. In the game you can find, I think, at least one signal with a 13 board in the ETCS tutorials right at the start. You will see that, and I think when you're going to Sędziszów, there is a signal with one of those numbers at one track, but I don't remember exactly where it is modified. So that is quite an easy way to cover all the speeds that are not covered by the signal, the color light signal aspects alone. How will a signal of that kind be announced? Typically, from what I have read in the rules, Ravensloft says at a Pochno the platform has 40 kilometers aspects with a 6. Yeah, that is actually an interesting point, right? Why would you not just use this aspect here, the green with the green band, if you want to upgrade the 50 to 60? But it obviously also works with a number 6 on the 40 signal. But I think I remember that one, seeing a 6 and wondering why would you use a 6 to signal it like this instead of using that. So maybe you can upgrade a signal that does not have this thing that shows the bands, but has then a plague to upgrade it to 60. But maybe you, Ravenslofty, or anyone else knows why it is done that way. It would be quite interesting. Yeah, in the ETCS tutorial you can see one of the signals upgrading to 130, I think, if I remember that correctly. And how are they announced? They are announced just like the corresponding color light aspect would be announced, without you actually knowing at this point that it will be an upgraded speed, unless you know it from your route knowledge or from your timetable where you're running at. So even if that signal is upgraded with a number of that kind, it will be announced with the corresponding aspect, so that you have to, with a flashing green, prepare for 100 in general, unless you know that it will be upgraded at this point, and the others will be announced with a flashing yellow, just as usual, as we have seen that in our first Polish signaling stream. Yes. Let's have a look how this looks in context. This is more or less a station with a platform. This is, I don't know if they built it this way in Poland. This is more likely to be found in British railways, where you have this crossing diamond. In Polish, it is, if I got that video correctly, it is called a trapez. And a trapez would be obviously not crossing lines here, but one is going to that side and the other one is going back without the lines crossing. So I don't know if they built it that way, but this should not be the problem. So you have the station area, and we know that the first signal, the home signal in the station area, is called a semaphora by wjazdowe, the entrance signal. And when we are going back to open track, we will have a signal that is called a semaphora wyjazdowe, the away signal. So only this one little y makes the difference, entrance exit signal. And then I have found in the rules a signal where I do not have found a lot of information for it. That was called a semaphora drogowskazowe, what always translates to signpost signal. And I've watched a video in Polish about those semaphore drogowskazowe, probably, to make a plural out of it. And from what I've understood, those are signals that are used in quite a similar way that we would use probably Zwischensignale in German signaling, intermediate signals. They are existing between the home signal and the starter signal, between the Einfahrsignal and the Ausfahrsignal, and they more or less cut the tracks in between in smaller sections, so that you can protect like crossovers, level crossings, platforms and stuff like that. So if I got this correct from the Polish video that I watched with the automatically generated subtitles, then yeah, those are kind of intermediate signals that exist there. And why do I talk about this? Because the interesting question is, how long is a speed limit that comes from a signal of that kind is valid? How long is it valid? And yeah, I put the question mark here because I'm not entirely sure about this type of signal, if this is always that kind, but you find this term not so often in the signaling rules. So on the entrance signal, the speed limit is valid until the next main signal, until the next signal actually that you're getting, because there will not be a distance signal in the station area. So quite similar to the Anschließen and Weichenbereich that we know from German signaling entrance signals, intermediate signals until the next signal that is giving you a new order. So that is true for the home signals and for those drogowskazowy signal that are probably intermediate signals, Zwischensignale. It is different for the exit signal, for the starter signal that is letting you out on the open track, because then it can actually be quite a bit of track until you get the next signal, be it an automatic signal or be it a distance signal for the next home signal that you are encountering. And here you find the order in the rules that if there is a track speed limit of 140, for example, that as soon as the signal here is hit, it would be limited to 40 by force of this yellow light. Here, because it is upgraded, a 50 limit, and here again, because it is not upgraded, just a simple yellow light to 40. And why does it end here? To go back to the line speed of 140. We will get the term in a bit. I made the animation in a different order. Obviously here I invented those symbols here to show whether this limit changes if the tip of the train is actually hitting the signal or the end of the train has to pass the signal. So obviously the 40 limit starts as soon as the tip of the train passes the home signal. Same here, and this is not self-explanatory. Even if there is an upgrade in the signal speed limit from what you can see in the game, and I have to accept this as being correct, the upgrade happens as soon as the tip of the train passes this signal. And CD Radar says Drogowskaz would be signpost or guidepost. Literal translation of drogo. Wskaz would be second pointer. Alright. Okay. Yeah, this still makes sense, I think. They are used, from what I can understand, like in German or Austrian signaling, we would use Zwischensignale to subdivide the area between the home signal and the starter signal, the entrance signal and the exit signal. And in the video that I watched, there was a guy standing on his station tracks and explaining that they are protecting a trapeze and a level crossing and trains standing at the platform. So that is quite similar to what a Zwischensignal does, I think. If you know more about it, guys, just let me know in the comments. It's always good to learn. But again, back to this. It is not self-explanatory here that the upgrade happens. Thank you, YouTube viewers, says CD Radar, for explaining in advance. Yes, thank you so much. It is not self-explanatory, so this is worth repeating a third time, actually, that the upgrade happens as soon as the tip of the train passes the signal. Even if it is an increase in limit, not the whole train has to pass with those signal speed limits. At least this is how the train, how the game works, and I think this must be implemented correctly. I have not found anything in the rules actually stating this, but the new signal will give the new order here. And anyway, I put the question mark here because I have not found a corresponding rule to it, but nevertheless, I think this is correct. Here, obviously, it is a reduction in the signal speed limit. Tip of the train is relevant. And then, in Czech, he says we would call these chestové, those signals. All right. Interesting. Maybe I should read the Czech rules then. Oh, I see now. It is making sense. Yeah. At the exit signal, obviously the speed limit that is signaled here starts with the tip of the train passing. And then we don't have to get to the next signal. That might be kilometers away. But it is okay that the train clears what is called in the rules the okrąg zwrotnikowy, if I got the nominative case back from the genitive case properly. And from what I understand, okrąg is something like a circle that can also be used for an area, right? Or something like that. And the area Srotnikowy would be the area where the switching happens. So the Weichenbereich, as you would call it in German or Austrian signaling terms. So again here, just correct me if I got this stuff wrong, but from how I understood the rules in Polish, this is the area after the exit signal where the limit is still in effect, and as soon as the train has left it, and here relevant part is the end of the train clearing the area, then you can go back to line speed. At least, again, this is how the game seems to have implemented this, and I have no reason to doubt that this is correct. There you go. That is the signaling, color light signaling with the possibility to upgrade the speeds that are shown by the color light aspects, and they are valid on home signals and those drogowskazowe signals, intermediate signals, for the whole part to the next signal, just like in the German rules. And for the exit signal, you have to clear the okrąg Srotnikowy with your full train, and then you can go back to line speed. And I said this is the first part of the presentation. This is why I stop the presentation here and let the train run on a bit until we get to the signage that is connected with speed signaling. We were just allowed to go back to line speed that had dropped hidden to 50. And we are now in this quite slow speed part between Tunel and Charsznica. And see, the radar says we have these even in metro signaling. Intermediate signals makes a lot of sense, right? Why not subdivide the station area in metro signaling? And yes, we are now in this quite slowish part here, where we get a lot of speed limits for level crossings. At the moment, none are announced. We typically get them a couple of kilometers away. There's the level crossing that we honked for. Obviously, again, we are in an area without automatic signaling. That means we are just running on our track until we get to the distance signal. That is already announced here, and we can already see it. Not the yellow one, that is for the other track, but that one would be ours. See, now a set of speed reductions came into place. Our distance is green. That means we're not getting any upwards aspects on the next signal. And this stuff, obviously, that the HUD is telling us, we know from our timetable. Yeah. Charsznica is close, but then it will be quite a long way to Wolbrom and then Olkusz. There is quite a bit of slow driving. On the left track you can see a speed limit that is not valid for our. Poland is Europe's America with a constant honking. Yeah, there is a lot of honking, that's true. And what does Ravens Lofty say? Charsznica is my favorite highly depressed station. I see that sells the cottage cheese. Here we honked even though this level crossing has barriers. Should we make in real life meeting here in Charsznica? Next time I am a multiplayer, we will do this. And then we will have some cottage cheese. Well, not next time we're in multiplayer. Real life, we will do it when we are in real life next time. Yeah, I actually made it to the Czech Republic last weekend for a night. But Poland would have still be a bit longer. Next time in the real life, yeah. Explain yourself, why we have been there. Actually, this was a family thing where I was informed on very short notice. Apparently, parts of my ancestors spent quite some time during World War II in Karlovy Vary in the Czech Republic. And we were just checking out the places where they lived there and where they were accepted as refugees. So that was actually quite interesting. The 30 is now announced here in a distance of 850 meters. I like it very much, your Kofola, but it is insanely strong, isn't it? I drank half a liter in the evening and I was not able to close my eyes until 4 in the morning or something like this. So maybe I bought some special edition. Or this is the way it is supposed to be. So here is the 30 limit. Ending right away. But obviously we have to clear. Again. So since we have to clear with our full train the 30 limit, we can only acknowledge that the line limit, track limit increases to 60 at this point. So as soon as we have cleared the 30 limit, the speed limit should snap to 60, not 50. Raven Lofty says, drink Club Mate in Germany, drink Kofola in Czechia, and you'll never have to worry about getting a hotel. So it did not snap to 60 but to 50 because we have still to clear the 60 sign, obviously. Yeah. I drank Club Mate in Germany a lot and it never hit that hard as Kofola did. And CD Raider says last time he was in Karlovy Vary was at the horse races last year. Well, that sounds interesting. 30 is announced. So, no, we did not go to the horse races actually. I did not even see the racetrack. And 50 is announced, so line speed limit will probably drop to 50 again. But before that happens, we are getting a permanent reduction to 30. Hippodrom Holubeck. I see. Yeah, I guess all the spa goers need a place to spend their time and their money. And Karlovy Vary is your Pendolino's destination. Oh, that is cool. I actually did not see the station in Karlovy Vary. And I just hopped onto my cousin's car and tagged along. There are 2 stations there, I see. And what did you do at the horse races after all? Are you a betting man? And Ravenslovely says it was suggested that I drink Club Mate when I visited Germany since I'm a programmer and Club Mate is popular in German hacker culture. Hmm? Not only there. Here was the Vizcashnik 27A for the reduction to 50. At the same time, more or less, the 30 limit ended. So the overall limit climbs to 50 again. To be entirely honest, Mr. Ravenslovely, I think I prefer Mio Mio Mate. I see. I don't think that I ever drank that. Altogether, I am not so much the Mate guy. But the Kofola is... it's really good. I like it. Oh yeah, I can see the Kaufland there. Yeah. Actually, when we got there and I saw the Kaufland, I was pestering everyone that on our way home we should stop there so that I can get a couple of 6-packs of Kofola. And nobody knew it, so everyone was actually quite interested what that would be. The draft Kofola tastes a little different from the bottled one. Okay. So there is even a draft Kofola. And I asked the waiter at the restaurant whether they have Kofula, but they did not. Iron Brew. Yes, Iron Brew, I know that. Iron Brew is a thing that I definitely do like, but not too much of it, actually. Line speed back to 60 was not announced because it was an increase. Got to roll through the dead section. Oh, actually we are already in the dead section. We are already through the dead section. And now our train has cleared the increase to 60 with Koschnik 27A sign. And we can go back to line speed 60. The incoming limit to 40 from the signal in 6.8 kilometers we cannot see yet. Not even the timetable can tell us, only the HUD. So I think when we are at Wolbrom I will have the rest of the presentation. And CD Raider says, oh, the horse races. No, I do not bet. I was there to help and support a friend whose horse participated in the race. Oh yeah, that is nice of you. And you already told me that you have a friend who owns race horses. What must be a brutally expensive hobby. I mean, my mundane horses who are no race horses at all cost me an arm and a leg each month. Oh yeah, but sometimes they win some money. Yeah, well, that is the other thing, right? If they win enough so that they can actually support themselves, then it can be a different thing. The stopping point did not even have a signal. No switch, no signal. It's still like 10 minutes to Wolbrom. Those are the bits that make this line here so slow. But landscape-wise, it is actually an interesting part. Sometimes more interesting than the green fields and forest on the high-speed line. But thanks for the hint, and next time I will have to find a place where I can get draft Kofola in the Czech Republic. So, we're running up to a speed limit to 20, but it is still a couple of kilometers to get there. This signal is for the level crossing, telling us all right, we can go. I'm doing 61, yes. To speed it to speed it up a bit. And since I'm not getting docked for it, soon as the gradient changes, we will be back to 60 anyway. Already flipped. And on the Dragon you always have two different readings on the speed clock, right? Or at least quite often. 61 in the middle, 60 here, 60 there. So you can actually choose. Don't know which one of them is connected with the event recorder. In 1 hour I will have gained 1 kilometer, yes. God bless the metric system. And see, now we are back to 60 anyway, because we're going uphill a bit. But now we'll coast, since my timetable tells me that there will be a speed reduction. To 20. And anyway, we have the limit to 40 on the signal. The R board for the workers. 40 and slow, it said. I just saw that it was flashing on top. So signal limit of 40. Still we know from the HUD that there is a 20 limit incoming. We have not seen an announcement for that yet. And I'm not entirely sure if there is an announcement. If that is this 20 limit, it is that I think it is, then it is a temporary one without a D6 signal announcing it. Or is that like cars do, Skoda especially, they deliberately show you a speed plus 3 kilometers higher than what you're actually driving? Yes, this is what all cars in Europe at least do, because they have to do it. There is actually a regulation in European law that requires car manufacturers to build their speed clocks in a way that they always show a higher number for safety reasons than the car is actually driving. It's a percentage. In German it is called the so-called Tachovoreilung. And I once found where it was actually regulated, but I forgot it again. It is in some appendix of some European directive, I think. 40 and go. Ah, no, it's not the temporary one. It is a permanent one. You can see it up there, the limit to 20. And we are going on the left track again. As you can see in the chat, further right will happen on the left track. No, not yet. That's a different one. It was the old one. Here is the end of the 20 again, but obviously train has to pass and clear. Just set cruise control to 35. Same thing that we're doing here on the Dragon. But it's always good, saves you the odd buck in speeding tickets. So, as I have announced, before we go to Jaroszowiec Olkuszki, I will take a break and get to the second part of the presentation. What is the signs for speed limits? Is it that one? Yes, it's that one. So, you can see we have already something on the board. There is track speed, there are permanent speed restrictions and or reductions, and temporary speed reduction. Why did I say reduction? Restriction would be the better word, I guess. Anyway, track speed, since it is all a translation from Polish, it is probably not a problem that I used a different word here. So, what signs are connected with track speed? This is our line, obviously. There is a speed limit that any train must have to obey running on this track under best conditions, and this speed limit is typically signaled with those thingies here. Vizkashnik 27As. The number 27As indicates that they are one of the newer Vizkashniks. Probably in former times it was not signaled at all, maybe, and at any rate it is now signaled. Looks just like or quite similar to German LF7 signs. Black number on white background. Here we have deliberately a black border, just like the German LF7 signs, giving you in tenths of kilometers per hour how fast you can go at best with your trains, starting at this point if it is a reduction tip, if it is a increase end of train is relevant. So starting at this point 50. If it is an increase 80, and there is in the rules a provision that if you do not have enough room to get this sign on the stick next to your track, then you can have a smaller sign that you put on the height of the railhead. So this cloud here is supposed to symbolize that there is not enough room for the big sign. So those small signs that you sometimes find on the floor, miniature versions of the signs, have just the same order in it. So if your track starts with 100 and then there is a limit that is decreasing the track speed limit, then it should be announced by one of those triangular signs, yellow, with the number again corresponding to the limit. We have seen that a couple of times when we were running. Is a Vizkashnik 8 here, announcing this limit, and it should be put up in a braking distance. If I got this right in Polish, it is something like droga hamowania. Hamowania is always related with the brakes, and droga, I think, is the distance or the way. Sometimes it also has a word in front of it that also sounds like, that ends with an sh at the end. At any rate, I forgot it. Not Olkusz, that's where we're going to. But I think droga hamowania is the braking distance. So this can be a kilometer like in Germany, but sometimes it can be shorter if the braking distance is still issued for the relevant reduction in track speed limit. Also here is the possibility to have a sign. If you don't have enough room to put up the normal sign, then you can put it up on the floor, but then it is pointing upwards, not downwards, the triangle. Also a thing that we know from German signaling as well, the LF6 announcement boards and the ZS3V announcement boards can also be put up pointing upwards or downwards according to how much room you have to put them up. Yeah, just as normal, the reduction in speed limit takes effect as soon as any part of the train, so typically the tip, is passing it, and the increase in track speed limit takes effect as soon as the whole train has passed the sign. So you need a distance counter, a roadrunner system, or you have to calculate your length and use the hectometer boards to see when your train is safely past the sign so that you can increase your speed. That is track speed. Permanent speed restrictions, reductions, limits is a different thing that can run, as we have already seen when running the service, independently of the track speed. So same thing here, let's have 100 kilometers track speed limit, and then at a certain point we want to reduce the speed to 50, and then it should return to track speed limit of 100. So how do we signal that? We have those boards rectangular, and in the rectangular board that is higher than wide, you have this downward pointing triangle at the point where the limit starts. And in the newer rules, you find those signs that are called Vizcašnik 9, Vizcašnik 9, always with the number identifying the speed limit here. But you can, where it begins and where it ends, you will have more or less the same sign, but the other way around. Now the diamond, the triangle pointing upwards. So here is where the limit ends. Here there is no number, even in the newer signs. Again, this is also Vizcašnik 9. They are announced, and now this is the interesting part, or one of the interesting facts. It is announced by the same Vizcašnik 8 as the decreases in track speed limit. So here at this point, you do not know yet whether it is a reduction in track speed limit or whether it is a permanent speed reduction. Same sign, same Vizcašnik to announce it. And obviously, as soon as the tip of the train here passes the beginning sign, the downward pointing triangle, it starts, and the whole train has to clear the end sign for the limit to be lifted, and you can go back to track speed limit. And as I said, in the newer versions of the signaling rules that I have found here, especially in this one from 2020, you can always find them with the number here stating again or repeating the announced speed limit. But you have, if you remember, we have seen on our service already that sometimes this number is missing, and this is the version of the signs that you can find in this Rozporządzenie from 2005, where you only find those boards without a number as Vizcašnik 9. So if anyone knows more about this difference and the history or whatever, also please let us know in the comments. I guess that this is a bit of a more modern version to put the number here. Here the driver always has to remember what limit actually was announced, and here they get reminded of it, so it is a bit easier. You don't have to keep that in mind, and easier for the driver means safer for everyone involved. Yes. Also here is a smaller version possible, then it is just a miniature version of that sign in case if there is not enough room. Then one interesting fact is that this sign that is typically on the right side, so we're driving from left to right, so the signs are on the right side, just as the signals, unless we are on the left track, then they are left of our track that we're running, but we are now talking about running on the right, normal, regular track, and then they should be on the right. And here it can be that the end sign is on the left side of the track, even if signs should not normally be on the left side of the track. Why is that? Because sometimes this end sign is just the back side of the beginning sign when you're coming from the other direction and running the line into the opposite direction. Then you can just put up one post, and on the one side it has the beginning, on the other side it has the end. So then you can actually take this as the end sign for your speed limit here. Not necessarily so, but sometimes it is done the way, so that will be proper. And you can find in this 2020 document an endless number of examples of how those signs are supposed to be put up. If it is a unidirectional line, if it is a single line that is used for both directions, if there is a couple of lines, and how you would do that. But this is the general principle. Sometimes it can be on the left side and it's still valid for you. Okay, this is the permanent speed reduction or restriction or limit. Now a variation of that connects to this point here. It is, as we have seen, sometimes quite tiresome if we have a section with a speed limit that is only a couple of meters, and then we have to wait until our full train has cleared the ending sign to be able to go back to line speed. So is there a way to signal it in a way so that the limit ends as soon as the tip of the train passes the end sign? And there is. So let's take the same example, but now let's have a limit to 30. This does not actually matter, but just to have a different number here. And we want it to be signaled in a way that it takes effect, obviously, as the tip of the train is passing the beginning sign, but also to end again when the tip of the train passes the ending sign. So this is the difference here. How do we do that? Beginning is the same, different number here because it is a different value, but this does not make the difference. Announcement is the same with a different number, and in the end sign we have the C. That is the difference that makes the difference. If you have the C in the ending signs, that tells you that it is enough that the tip of the train passes this sign. That was permanent speed reduction. Now talking about temporary speed reduction is actually in the signage not a big difference. It is a bit of a difference in the way of announcing it, but only more or less in the name of the signal, respectively Staszic temporary speed reductions, those with portable signs, so that can be just put there by railway workers. Let's have a look how we would do that. Same example again, a track speed 100, then we want to have a section where we limit it temporarily with movable signs to 30 kilometers per hour. How do we do it? It is more or less the same signage here, but it is orange. That is the difference. Apart from that, the beginning and end signs work more or less the same again. We have the more modern versions with the number here in the triangle and the older versions without. It is now called a Staszic 14, not a Staszic 9. Same thing at the end. If there is no C, we have to clear it with our whole train. If there is a C, it is enough that the tip of the train passes this sign. And now the announcement looks a bit like you would announce German speed reductions here. It is a triangle again, white in a white border, orange background, and a black number. And for whatever reason, what might be historically, because temporary speed restrictions limit are always more touchy because the driver is not used to that, and maybe he forgot that he has, or they have been told about them. So those signs need to be illuminated. We know that from the German versions with the yellow light next to it for the temporary speed restrictions. And here it is not a Vizkašnik that is announcing this, but it is a signal. It is a, yeah, more or less a higher ranking identifier. A D6 signal here, not the Vizkašnik 8 announcing it. And Ravenslofty was nice enough to provide us with an order, I think a K order it was, that is telling us about those temporary speed reductions and where they are in our way when we had our stream last time. And then there are permanent temporary. It's order O. Oh, sorry. Yes, it's order O, not K. Sorry. Thank you for paying attention. It's order O for the temporary speed. And CD Raya, what do you think are permanent temporary reductions? You have to explain this. Unfortunately, I don't think that we are getting another color next to the white and orange color for permanent temporary reductions. But more or less, this is the signage that we can find there. There's one more Vizkašnik for the diverging speed limits on the next slide. But this is more or less what we need to remember for our bread and butter run. And CDRS has temporary reductions that last forever because no one will ever repair it. Yes, okay, I understand that. But it is orange anyway. Maybe they, over time, the orange paint will bleach from sunlight and then they get whiter and whiter and whiter so that they are more permanent. But there is no special rules for that, I'm afraid. Repeating, track speed announced with the Vizkašnik 8, the black number on a white triangle with black border sign announced a limit, and the track limit is told us by the rectangular or square signs with a black number on white background with a black border. Permanent speed reductions, they begin at a certain point, they end again, and after that we are back to track speed limit with the rectangular signs with the downward pointing triangle for the beginning and the upward pointing triangle for the end, and they are also announced by the Vizkašnik 8 indicator with the twist that if you have the C in the end sign, then you don't need to clear this sign with your whole train, but it is enough that the tip of your train passes the sign. So this is typically handy on level crossings where you slow down the train so that the risk of an accident is lowered, but as soon as the train is on the level crossing, occupying the level crossing, there is no point in the train being slowed down so that it can actually start accelerating again, like the BU signs on LF7 signs in Germany, for example. And similar things in other signaling systems. So if there is a C, you can accelerate earlier. Temporary speed reductions in orange, and you have this announcement with a black number on orange ground with a white border, and typically it does not matter for you that this is not a Vizkašnik but a signal actually. What the difference is and where it can make a difference might be an interesting question, but for your bread and butter running, it does not make a difference at all. You just know here you are running into a temporary one, and you have it the order O on your train typically. If Ravenslofty is nice enough to send you one, so that you know where those temporary speed reductions are supposed to be, because those permanent speed reductions should be in a list or in your timetable, so that you know where to expect them. And now some twists. Yeah, again, as also here there is the version for no room enough, then you can have it the other way around, pointing upwards. So, and again, as I have already said, sometimes the older versions don't have the number in it. What is left to say? Sometimes those permanent speed reductions or temporary speed reductions are valid for an entire station area. So how would you signal that then? So here's our line, 100 kilometers per hour is the track limit. Here is a station area with a bit of sidings and a platform. You have your entrance signal, the wjazdové signal. You have the wyjazdowe, the starter signal, and between them there is the station area. And obviously you can put, if you only want to limit it, the speed limit to a part of the station area, then you can put it somewhere at some point, start and end. But the rules specify specifically the situation where you want to limit it for the whole station area. Then you would put your signs on the signals. Next to the home and the starter signal, you have typically the distance signal, the tarcza ostrzegawcza, or the last automatic signal that works as a distant signal with the Wskaźnik 18. This black circle with the black point in the middle on the white ground. And then here you want to have the limit start at the beginning of the station area, so you put this sign on the entrance signal, whereas the announcement signal, the Wskaźnik 8, shall be put on the distance signal. That's what the rule says. Then it is valid for the whole station area. At what point you can return to track a limit concerning the permanent speed reduction, if it is happening at the exit signal, or if it is happening if you have cleared the last switch when running out of the station. I'm not entirely sure. I'm also not entirely sure whether you will have an end signal then or no end signal at all, because it ends after you're out of the station anyway. Probably you don't have one, and probably you can return to track limit not before you have cleared the last switch of the station area. But this is something that I have not found in the rules yet, so if anyone knows or someone knows how exactly or where exactly a limit that is signaled that way ends, since I do not know better, I would just stick to the limit until the whole train has cleared the last switch after the starter signal. And then you should be on the safe side. One thing that is not specific on its own, but it is an interesting fact, and we have seen that already when we were running. Speed restrictions can overlay. So the signal speed restrictions that come from the color light signals can overlay the track speed limits. That is trivial, that we have all the time. But also the permanent speed restrictions can overlay the track speed and the signaled speed restrictions. And then what is the ruling principle? Obviously the lowest limit is always the one that takes effect. And since they can overlap and overlay, it is sometimes hard to keep track of it. Just have an example. Line 100 kilometers, station area. Here again, entrance signal that you get is a steady yellow on the bottom and a flashing yellow on the top, meaning 40 now, slow later. Then your exit signal, this should be the exit signal here, is yellow with the yellow band and a green on top, meaning 60 now, and go, meaning expect no signal speed restriction at the next signal, but you can go track speed as soon as the 60 runs out, meaning as soon as you are out of the switches, because it is the starter signal, as we have seen on the first slide. But when you're entering this area, you will get this triangular sign with a 3 announcing a limit to 30. Next thing that you see is not the beginning of the 30 limit, but an announcement to 70. Just as we have seen announcement to 40, announcement to 50, announcement to 40. So you actually have to keep track that sometimes before the limit even starts, you can get the announcement for the next limit. And then you run into the signal that is giving you a speed restriction here. And after that, somewhere in the station, the 30 limit that was announced here starts. And then you get a Vizcashnik 27A for the track speed of 70 that was announced here. After that, you get the end sign for the 30 limit. Then you pass the exit signal, and then you're back on open track. So what limit actually is relevant at what point? The announcement does not change the limit, obviously. The first thing that changes something is as soon as the tip of your train passes the home signal, but then you will have to adhere to the 40 limit that comes from the signal. Then, obviously, you hit the next board that lets the 30 limit begin. And since it is a lower limit, as soon as the tip of the train passes this sign, the 40 drops to 30. How long is the 40 limit active? Because it is an entrance signal all the way until the next signal. But here, the lower 30 limit from the permanent speed restriction takes effect because it is lower. Again, sometimes the 3 is not marked here because the old board only has the downward pointing triangle without the 3. If that actually works, if you have two announcements and you don't know whether this is the 30 or the 70 that was announced here and starts, if in doubt, always go with the lower number. Or paint your 3 on this sign, then it is clear. Passing the Vizcashnik 27A with a 70 does not change a thing, obviously, because we are still in the lower 30 limit. Then the train gets to this point and has to clear it fully, and then the 30 limit ends. And what is then relevant? The 70? No, it is still the 40 that we got from the entrance signal, from this yellow light. So we are back to the 40 now as soon as the train passed the end for this 30 limit. So the 70, is it relevant at all? Not at this point. Next thing that happens is the train, after clearing completely the end signal for the 30 limit, gets this signal here. And now, as soon as the tip of the train passes the signal, it is getting upgraded to 60 from the yellow with the yellow band. In case the end signal here, the end sign for the 30 limit, is closer to the exit signal than the length of the train, obviously then we have to clear this 30 limit before this 60 limit here can take effect. I think the rule for the tip of the train passing the signal for the new signaled limit to come into effect can probably not exempt you from adhering to this permanent speed restriction until your train has completely cleared the end sign. At least this is my understanding of the rules. But here in our example, you can clear the sign with your whole train before the tip of your train passes the exit signal, and you're allowed to go 60. And then you go through the switches, and as soon as your whole train has cleared the switches, you can go back to what? Not to the 100, not to the 40, not to the 60. You go back to the 70 track limit that was reduced at this point. So it's 3 limits that run independently that can be relevant for the actual speed limit that you have to adhere to. The signaled one with the color aspects, or the modification boards or the modifying boards, the track speed obviously, and the permanent or temporary speed restrictions. So actually, instead of a permanent speed restriction to 30, it can also be orange and be a temporary one. Then the same thing take effect, and they can overlap and overlay in a way that you get announced 2 or more limits before they actually take effect. Here you get an announcement for the temporary speed restriction, an announcement for the drop in track speed, but before they actually take effect you get a signal speed limit for the 40, then the permanent speed reduction takes effect, then the modification of the track speed takes effect, then the permanent one ends, then you get a modification in the signal speed, and as soon as the signal speed ends you get back to the track speed. So that's actually not super trivial, but if you always keep in mind that those are three different things that are running independently, you will be not confused and can run the game without HUD, I guess, because then you should be always able to know what is the limit that is relevant for you. All right, 2 more things and then we are done. Diverging and upgrading speed restrictions. Now I am back to restrictions, not reductions like on the other slide, because I might have done the 2 slides on different days, but this is the only reason why I use different words here. Diverging and upgrading. This upgrading in quotation marks because I'm not entirely sure about this, but I think I have seen this happen in the game, and we have to discuss this. Now our line has a limit of 60 track speed, and there is a diverging line with a switch, and we want to limit trains that diverge to 20 at this point, but only if they diverge. So how do we do that? We want to limit them to 20 on the diverging line with a temporary, let's use a temporary speed restriction in this example. So obviously it starts at the switch, and we have to put there a beginning sign with 2 to make it clear. But how do we tell the driver that this is only applicable if we are actually diverging? We use an arrow sign. And this is the arrow sign that we would use here. It is for temporary speed restrictions orange with a black arrow pointing in the direction, telling the driver that this is only valid if you are going to the left on this switch. Obviously the arrow can point to the right direction as well, but here we want to use it for the left direction. This is the Sędziszów 36 in the orange version, if I did not get confused with the numbers. And obviously here tip of the train is relevant. As soon as the train is diverging to the left, passing this sign, he is limited to 20. This is indicated, just as we know it with temporary speed restrictions, with the D6 signal. And the D6 signal can also have this, the same Sędziszów 36 arrow, telling the driver if you are going to the left at the next switch, then be prepared that you are limited to 20. Same arrow works for permanent speed restrictions on the whiteboards, same way, I just put them here. Here it is a different number, it is a Sędziszów 35, but works perfectly the same way like with temporary speed restrictions. Then at some point we want to end this 20 thing again, and that would typically require the whole train to pass that. And now I think at the end of the run that we are doing at the moment, we are coming to a point where we have not passed the end sign for the 20 limit with our whole train, but we are passing a 40 reduction of the permanent kind with the tip of our train, while the end of our train is still somewhere inside the 20 limit. And at this point, I think from what I have seen, the game at once switches to 40 as a limit. So this is what I mean with upgrading. So I have not found a rule for that in the game, in the rules, but the game is treating it like this. So I'm not entirely sure if I can upgrade a given permanent or temporary speed restriction with a new Sędziszów of this kind showing a higher number. Obviously I can downgrade it. This is not the problem. If I start with 40 and I limit it to 20, that works as soon as the tip of the train passes it. It is also not the problem to give a new reduction if we have to wait until the whole train has passed the end, and then the 40 would take effect. But if we can actually use a sign of that kind to prematurely end the 20 limit here, even if the train has not passed the end sign, by just giving a new number. A bit like we could do this with ZS3 to upgrade the signal speed limit in German signaling before the train has cleared the anschließende Weichenbereich. And even then, the train has to pass the sign for it to take effect. So if that is a proper signaling according to Polish signaling rules, I am very interested if someone can tell me that in the comments. But from what I've seen, the game treats it like that. So even though the train has not cleared the 20 limit, passing the 40 sign for a new permanent speed reduction to increase the speed limit to 40 at this point. Maybe before everyone falls asleep, we will get to this point in our service, and then we can see and discuss it. It is just at the end of the service, if I remember correctly. Yeah. Let me know if you know anything about this, and if this is implemented properly and done like this in real life. Would be really interesting to know. Apart from that, that was my run through the speed signaling in Polish signaling as far as I got it from the regulations that are given here on the side of the slides. Let's just recap it. It is the speed signaling that we get from the color light signaling, sometimes modified with a white number on black board. That can only upgrade the color light aspect that is shown. Then track speed limits with the square white boards with the black numbers announced with the black numbers on triangular boards. Those also announce permanent speed reductions that are signaled beginning with a downward pointing triangle, the end with the upward pointing triangle. If there is a C, then the tip of the train is relevant, not the end of the train. And the same goes more or less for the temporary restrictions that are signaled with orange boards. And then I can close my PowerPoint and go back to driving the train. We paused here when we were in a 20. Train has not fully cleared. Can see it here. This is the end of the train. And here it is. That was the beginning board. But in the meantime, we might have entered in a different one. Now it's back to 40. Because we are out of the 20 limit. With a 40 probably coming from the signal. Got a 40 in go, didn't we? Now we are out of the switches. The 40 from the signal ran out. We are back to 60 track speed at this point. Soon enough we will get to another 20 limit. But there's still more than 1 kilometer to go. Those signs are announcing, also those yellow boards with the black triangles announcing those signals here that indicate that the level crossing up ahead is working properly. And here is a signal D6 announcing the temporary limit to 20. Our HUD does not distinguish between temporary and permanent speed reductions, also not between permanent temporary speed reductions and changes in line speed limit. This is always signaled on the HUD in totally the same way. Only the signal speed is shown here separately. If I remember correctly, we will have this temporary speed reduction at the level crossing, and it will be one that ends with a C board. Here you can see it hugging the fringes of the level crossing. We have to be down to 20 at the beginning of the level crossing, and you can see the C here in the end board. And you can see 60, 20, and it snaps back to 60 immediately. What is obviously much more convenient than having to run through the whole level crossing with our whole train staying below the 20. Car driver thinks that stupid train goes slow. That is true from a car driver's perspective. You would think, why is this train even slowing down instead of just pausing this level crossing? Sometimes we're getting 20 reductions announced when we are a kilometer away that vanish again, like here. And thanks to CD radar, I think I know now that this is because of we are approaching a level crossing that needs to be secured, and as long as it is not secured, we would have to slow down to 20 when passing it. But as soon as it is secured, like here by this guy waving the white light, then the 20 limit vanishes again. And I think this is the explanation for this happening on the HUD here. Thanks again, CD radar, for finding this out. Best job ever, he says. Yes. Best job ever for the guy who is waving the white light. They should add this to the MP. Yes, it's true. Play as the level crossing warden. So you can just operate level crossing and wave. Actually, it would be cool if sometimes the level crossings should not be secured and you actually have to take this 20 limit seriously until you see him wave. Again, 20 limit announced on the HUD, starting at a distance of 1 kilometer, and now it's vanished again because the level crossing has been secured. So why they use 2 Fahrdrahts? I actually don't know why they use 2 Fahrdrahts, but I guess it has to do with the fact that this is only 3000 volts direct current, right? Or do you have a more complex explanation for that? Here, the level crossing was not secured by a guy waving a white thingy, but just the barriers been closed, probably supervised by some traffic dispatcher. Or maybe the guy was waving somewhere where I did not see him. .3 kilometers to Jaroszowiec. Olkuszki. Spectre, hey, nice to see you. Long time no see. And thank you, yeah. I am fine. I hope you are fine as well. And your absence last week and the week before was only because you had better things to do. He got a little confused with the timetable. Yeah, I have to admit it was a bit confusing because of AJ working at first, and then I had to get all the things organized. But now I'm more or less back to my normal times. And I hope you did not feel excluded, because SimRail cannot be played on the console. And CD Raider said, someone stole the sun? Where did the sun go? Last week I was traveling, he said, but I watched the Fulda Frankfurt video on YouTube. This is an excellent route, is it not? I think so, yeah. Well, it is an excellent route, but I don't understand why there are still so many little signaling areas that arrows that have been discussed 100 times on the forums, like the missing white lights on the repeaters. And still it is in there. The weird signaling with the white set the 7 is supposedly fixed now, at least I've seen it in the update notes. Did anyone say repeater? Yeah. And other things as well, they use the Austrian shunting limit boards again. This is all stuff that is not rocket science and cannot be. And why, if they are able to create such a great route, why they don't invest the extra 5 minutes to make it perfect? This is beyond me, actually. Where this information just does not get processed. Meh. Inspector says, I saw an HP0 with a distant yellow over yellow. Yeah. And I set the 6 for 60. Creative, yes. I think I have seen red lights with not dark distance signals as well. That is creative. You have to stop, but in case you're running the signal anyway, prepare to stop at the next one. And don't go faster than 60. And why they cannot implement on the new versions of their ICE trains the Wechselblinken for the restricted monitoring. Mike Golds writes on the forums that they flash or blink differently. What is true? They are supposed to flash the 85 and 70 indicators differently in the restricted monitoring, but it is not happening in the game. It is only flashing the 85 indicator regardless whether it is a restricted or non-restricted monitoring. And this has been discussed since Schnellfahrstrecke Kassel-Würzburg. And what happened? Exactly naught. I think we still have to stick to the 60 limit until we get to Olkusz, then we can go faster. It is not possible to adjust the driver first-person camera position, right? You're talking Fulda Frankfurt or you're talking SimRail? Inspector says, yeah, I got confused about this as well. Is it 40 or 80 now? But still driving the ICET on the approach to Frankfurt at dusk is a real nice one. Definitely. For Hanau, Frankfurt alone, the route is worth it, in my opinion. And I also like the semaphore signals at Hanau. That all looks great. But when you're starting in Hanau, you never know at what point you can actually go beyond the 40. Because it is just your 85 indicator flashing instead of alternatingly flashing with the 70 indicator, or not. Trains and world in general. On the older UK diesel locomotives and on some other trains too, you can actually adjust the height of the driver's seat. There's actually a lever on the seat where you can adjust the height. So at least this allows you to adjust the position. Neutral section here. So let's get this train to Olkusz. I want to go a bit faster than the 60. See, the radar says yes, but on many trains you sit very pressed against the glass, yeah. And then, for example, on ICE1 you sit so far back that you can't even read the monitor. I would appreciate a function like Euro Trucks that you can direct yourself anywhere by default. Yeah, that's true. Many simulators have that. Move the seat to the front, move the seat to the back, up, down. So girls, please, 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 Olkusz. Here is the distant. Very ecological chimney. That one. Probably the filter broke. Probably he's making eco-friendly power for eco-friendly trains. Let's hope so. Is that the station where you run into an unannounced limit? I'm not entirely sure. At least this is Olkusz. Home signal is telling us to expect stop without limiting us to anything. I think we are getting a scripted part where we are sent to the left track again here. Let's ask the dispatcher.
245001 to Olkusz, requesting entry.
Exit will happen on subsidiary signal of the track number 2 due to malfunction.
Subsidiary. Well, this was not the home signal because we're requesting entry. Thank you for not thanking me for not smoking. Yes. So, approaching our red signal that already has the subsidiary signal up. Since the area behind it is still controlled with semi-automatic signals, it will be 40 that we get limited to. The chimney is a coal-fired heating plant. After checking the map, says CD radar. Alright. So, not for the trains then. Light speed is increasing to 120. That means 100 for us. Since we are such a heavy coal train. Limited to 40 with the semi-automatic signals, and it will run out at some point here after having cleared the switches probably, and this is okay because we will get a new distance signal. In German signaling, you might remember the 2000 meters rule, in case that the signal where we get the subsidiary signal, the ZS1 SZ signal, has a Vorsignalfunktion. Then we have to stay to the 40 limit for maximum 2000 meters. Here it is not necessary to stick to the 40 anymore because we will get a distance signal before we approach the next main signal. Ravensloft says CD radar, and rightly so. For good that this is multiplayer. Players are so mad about subsidiary signals. I don't know why they are. I like subsidiary signals. It just gives you a bit of an extra punch and something new. So now the chimney managed to get everything foggy here. Everyone takes it very seriously. Well, I can understand that it is annoying to get a subsidiary signal if you're actually going into an area with automatic signals, because then you're limited to 20, and a limit of 20 is really annoying. Cajon Pass wipes because of the fog. Well, the nice thing about the Polish signaling is that after I got the distance signal, I know that in 1 kilometer there will be the red signal. Unlike Cajon Pass, where it is sometimes miles and miles and miles after the approach before you get the next signal. "11 minutes early, time to eco-drive." Yes, that is true. It's time to eco-drive, so that the stream might actually get to the 4 hours mark. Let's see if the 40 limit that the HUD announces us will be announced in the game as well. You probably have a bunch of inertia anyway. I will. How heavy are we? 620 tons. We're not so heavy, but still enough inertia to get us along. Distance is clear. The 20 disappeared again. The 40 reappeared. So let's watch out if we are getting that 40 announced. Yeah, here it is actually. Here, see, it's a bit smallish, but nevertheless. It is our 40 limit, and I am a bit too fast when running into it. But we made it without stopping. It was actually a full-blown limit of the track speed here, not just a permanent restriction. Neutral zone, starting here. So for passing this area here, they just chose neutral zone over for local pulled trains. For this station here, Bukowno, they just chose to reduce the track speed. Oh no, says CD radar. What did I do wrong again? You totally overspeed. No, well, within the margin. So far, I did not get docked for my speed, did I? And I want to get to this last point with this interesting signaling before everyone falls asleep. What loco are you driving, Suspector? It is the Dragon. I think the Dragon 1, even though this is sometimes not totally clear in the game what is a Dragon and what is a Dragon 2. I think this one, ET25, is a Dragon 1. So, let's clear the 120 sign so that we came back to our 100 track speed to approach Sławków. So can't be long. Yeah, here it is. Spectre says just googled it. That is a cool looking piece of machinery, yeah. And it is super sweet to drive in the game. It even has a diesel engine. That we were able to make use of when CD Radar stopped me in a dead section on the multiplayer stream 2 weeks ago. Oh, so many, we are not the only ones who names trains after animals. Well, if you consider dragon as animal, yeah. Ravenslov, you just hope it doesn't lock up when you try to get it serviced by SVS. Hey, not me, subsidiary. Yeah, you stopped me. You hopped in front of my train again. Spectre says in Germany and Switzerland there were locos named after a crocodile. Yes. You absolutely stopped me. By sound of it, you haven't heard about the Newag impulse scandal. No, I have not. You insinuated something, but I have not heard about it. And CD Ray says I actually managed to set path even on the old stuff. The mechanical signaling boxes. That's cool. Newag, this is Ravenslofty again, put DRM in their trains so they broke down if anyone other than Newag tried to service them. Oh! That is really the curse with all the trains being built by private companies. Former times with the Deutsche Bundesbahn, when they built their stuff on their own, everyone could service everything with a reasonable number of spare parts, and now if you don't have the proprietary company service computer, you can't do shit. Spectre says, is Newag a listed company? Sounds interesting. Newag, I think it is, right? With an N in the beginning. Newag, yes. Reduction to 100, what is not so interesting for us, was announced. Let's see if our 70 is getting announced as well. Yes, here it is announced. But it's only 70. That was the 100 was a permanent one. Now we just passed what was not interesting for us because we can't go faster than 100 anyway. Here is the end for the 100 limit and the beginning of the 70 limit, what is the track speed limit already. This is not investment advice, because he told Spectre the code of Neweg, where it is listed on the Warsaw Stock Exchange. So back to a 70 track limit. And it has this funny rocking motion again. Don't know if this is something that I should prevent from happening, and if so, how? Does not really work with dynamic brakes. Also, the air brakes do not stop the rocking. This then is showing us a reduction to 40 probably. Spectre heard that the new suspension on Train Sim World made some people seasick because of the motion. Now I can relate. And I am supposed to call 61016 to ask how I can stop this rocking. Well, the new suspension in Train Sim World, I really wonder how this can make you seasick. See it, say it, sorted. AJ, can you please call 61016? He says no. No, I think we're safe. AJ is asleep anyway. 40 and slow. At least I don't have to bother about the 40 limit that is incoming. Was it announced? In the meantime, I don't think so. Maybe they rely on the signaling anyway, so that it does not need to be announced. A reduction to 40. It is still rocking, right? You can hear it. Bonky, bonky, bonky. Oh, it stopped. No, it didn't. The blue shunting signal is not for us. Maybe it's not about breaking it, but accelerating it. Is that our 40 limit on the left side of the track? No, this is our 40 limit here. No, it was our 40 limit. Here is the end sign for our 40 limit. But obviously we are still under the 40 from the signal, so the temporary restriction to 40 here doesn't do anything on top of that. So the track speed is still at 70. Temporary restriction to 40 ended, but the signal is still keeping us to 40. And the next signal is giving us a new limit to 40. 40 and go. But there's not much go because we are running into a dead section first. Here. Who is Dorota Machalova? Because we are going to Dorota now. Track speed increases to 80 here. After having cleared this sign, we will see what happens first. Now a 30 limit is announced. If we first leave 40 from the signal, or first pass.
Dorota to 245001 radio check.
This is Dorota. I read you loud and clear.
So we first left the area of the signal with the 40, so it increased to the old track limit of 70, and then we cleared the 80 sign so that it increased to the new track limit of 80. And now this is an interesting thing here. 30 should happen in 1 kilometer, and no, he is actually totally correct. Totally correct. Here's the triangular board announcing it. And since we are running down the ramp, we should not accelerate so hard, so that we can smoothly reduce our speed to the 30 when we get there. Distance is clear. So our inertia momentum is pushing us downhill. And here is the 30. Permanent speed reduction to 30. And you can see most of the start signs for the permanent speed reductions don't bear any numbers. Let's see if we can hold the 30 with the dynamic brake. Ah, looks good. Quite well. And it is raining. That at least washes our screen. Ravens love the less electric brake, more often emotional support brake. Are you saying that the air brakes are the emotional support brake? It makes it feel good that you're helping the environment, but it doesn't actually slow you down. Okay. Yeah, I guess with a heavy train it doesn't do a lot. But it's not their job to actually slow you down. On their own, at least. So here finally the 30 limit ends. And this is why it announces an increase to 80, what is the track speed. But obviously we first have to clear it with our train. And going to Juliusz. So, quite soon it should snap back to 80. And then we already have an increase to 100 track speed. Change to radio channel 5. And until we got our train back to 80. We can just go on getting it to 100. Let's see how fast we can do this without getting wheel slips on this wet track here. That the HUD is giving us a red signal cannot really be taken into account because we have to get to the distance before we know what we are running up to. See? But it is getting this train nicely up to speed. And we got the rocking dragon again. This time from accelerating. Maybe it is because accelerating too hard does that. Now let's see what the distance has in store for us. And it has in store for us a yellow. So we have to burn our great momentum again.
Juliusz to 245001 radio check.
This is Juliusz. I read you loud and clear.
Actually, I did not only want to do radio check, I wanted to ask you to switch the signal, but now according to the repeater, at any rate, it switched. Limit to 30 announced. Alright, then there is no point in getting back to speed. Blow the horn that we are here. And it's actually a full-blown reduction to 30 track speed. Again, permanent to 20 announced. Let's see if the feel-good brake can do this. Yes, a 620-ton trains. It actually does slow us down. Here is a triangular sign without anything depicted. If I read the rules correctly, this should require us to blow our horn with the caution signal. Hope we are not getting a reward for it. Or maybe there was just missing a number for the reduction to 50 here, because that one was not announced so far. And blow your horn sign, I think it is the other way around normally. Pointing upwards. Here's our 20 limit at any rate. So passing the 50 sign does not help us a lot. We have to clear, since there is no C, we have to clear this sign here completely before we can go faster than 20. We're actually getting closer to the end of our journey though. Here's the 20 limit. For a change we get the number here on the board. So a new limit to 20 actually. Ending here, so we have a new sign that we have to clear before we can go faster than 20 again. 21.4, so we have to travel to, is it counting upwards or downwards? Either 21.0 or 21.8. Would not a seaboard. So now 50. Fortunately, we did not see the hectometric boards. But we must have cleared the sign. .22.0 there was, so it is start counting downward. What is the distance signal saying? This is the distance that is hidden behind the other signal for the opposite direction, but it is clear anyway. Repeater without a Roman number. And the signal is keeping us clear. Still have to watch out if there is a 30 announced. I think it is a temporary one here. We would look into our order O and see. Oh yeah, and here is the D6 signal for it. Slow down to 30 required. Let's see if the feel-good brake can do it, even though we are going through a dead section. On some trains, the dynamic brakes don't work in dead sections, because we cannot get rid of the energy that is created. If it works with this train, I don't know, because the neutral sections are not simulated yet. Here is the beginning of the 30 reduction that was announced. And here already is the end to it. 24.4. Oh, it's counting upwards anyway. 24.6, so 24.8, we can accelerate again. They shouldn't have their signs lying about like this. So 24.8, we have it 24.9, so we can accelerate again. Back to 50 line speed. Stawiska is next, then Katowice Janów, and then we are passing Katowice Muchowiec KMB, and then Staszic. So when closing in on the 3-hour mark in this stream, there is actually hope that we can finish this service. Spectre, maybe a stupid question, but are there no AI trains in SimRail? There are, but only on multiplayer and in the newer single-player missions. In the older single-player missions, there are no AI trains. Maybe they will be added later, but obviously this has been a thing, or that is a thing that has been discussed a lot. That in the older AI missions, in the older single-player missions, there are no AI trains. This is why it is so lonely here in Lower Poland or Lesser Poland or whatever it's called. So, Stawiska. We made it to Stawiska. Katowice Janów. That is not so far. You can see one of those lower versions with a smaller sign for the track speed limit. Rectangular version of the announcement boards, all because we have a track to the right of us, I guess. Not to interfere with the loading gauge on that side. Distant is showing clear. The next reduction to 30 is still quite some distance away. Six powered axles. That is a dragon. More environmentally friendly chimneys ahead. Oh yeah, you're right. Here. Anyway, I like this atmosphere very much, actually. With the rain in this industry area. So, next thing is already Katowice Muchowiec KMB. Let's watch out for the announcement for the 30 and the 50. And here we see one of the announcement boards. It's for the 30. Let's see if the feel-good brake can do anything. And the announcement for another 30. Oh, actually the feel good brake has an effect here. Too much effect because we still have half a kilometer until we get to the 30. That's a motorway, huh? And here finally is our 30 limit. Sitting on the left track. Or on the left of the track here. Probably because we have this other track to the right. 20 is announced, 30 ends. There was a second reduction to 30 announced shortly after. We must be running uphill because we are losing momentum quite fast. We don't accelerate. .30 is announced again. For a short bit we are back to our 50. Probably at the bridge. This is where the 20 will start. So, passing the bridge with 20. This is where it ends. $35.1 it is, I guess. So 35.5 we can forget about the 20, but the announced 30 reduction is now incoming. And we can check if we get upgraded to the 30 at this board here. Remember, last part of the presentation was, is there something like upgrading speed reductions? And here even though we have not cleared the 20 restriction, it gets upgraded to the 30. So the game seems to treat this kind of signaling in that way that you can upgrade with a higher numbered permanent speed or temporary speed reduction board, even though the train has not cleared the old or the prior speed reduction completely. So here the 30 ends. So if anyone knows if this is how it is supposed to be, please don't hesitate to let us know. Now we left the 30 and we can go back to line speed 50. Even though we are getting a flashing yellow on the distant informing us that we have to expect 40 at the next signal. Here this indicator is telling us that this signal is on the left side. Should normally be on the right side. But it is on the left side because we have a track on the right of us. But this tells us that we are actually not running on the technically left track, but those are two tracks that are more or less coming together at this point and not the two pairs. Temporary to 20 is announced, and I think this is the part that I talked about in the presentation. We did not see an arrow though at this point, so maybe this is also for going straight at this point. But nevertheless, this is the point where we get a temporary limit to 20 upgraded by a permanent limit to 40, if I remember correctly. Here's the 40 and go signal. Now it's actually standing on the right. Limit that has been announced. We're going to the left here to make our U-turn around this coal mine facility, and here is the end sign for the 20 limit. The 50 for the track speed will not upgrade us immediately.
Staszic to 245001 radio check.
This is Staszic. I read you loud and clear.
But now, even though the train has not cleared the end of the 20 limit yet, we're getting a 40 beginning sign, and immediately the limit switches to 40. So again, upgrading speed limits. This then is flashing us a yellow. This is the level crossing where those poor people are constantly waiting in the rain before crossing. What never happens. C limit end sign, so from 40 to 50 immediately. But approaching the signal, we got flashed a yellow, meaning we have to slow down to 40 again. .40 and go. .30 incoming. Here we can actually see the arrow for the incoming limit. That only applies if we are diverging to the left. Not to be confused with this kind of arrow. It just tells us where to go. Here, track limit 30. What was announced? And I think this is the last signal that we are approaching finally, after 3 hours 15. We're getting close to the end of our service. At the facility at Staszic. Still have to drive through, though. But stop in the yard. it's actually the signal changed once more, so probably we have one signal more. Mind that we have a distant signal here, much closer to the corresponding main signal than 1000 meters, but like 300 meters more like, because we have this slow track speed of 30 here. So the droga hamowania is much shorter. And this should be home signal Staszic. Expect stop. See that our train does not stall on our way inside. This is Staszic. Place where the Tracks 2 scenario starts, I think. And this looks like our end signal here. And here we are. Yeah, that is the nice thing about single player missions in SimRail. 2 hours, 25, 37 seconds and the thing is done. Let's have a look at the graph. What did we miss? Do you see anything red? Any missed honking board? Any overspeeding? No. All clear, all green. Guys, thank you so much for staying with me. I hope this, well, thing about the Polish speed signaling in signage and in color light aspects was halfway interesting for you. I think it is a quite complex and interesting system because you have three things that can overlay the color light aspects, the track speed and the permanent and temporary speed restrictions. So definitely worth looking into it, and there is a lot to do if you run the routes like this, and it is possible to run them without HUD. We had them HUD on because we wanted to see how everything works and how it translates in the HUD. But if you look for those signs and the density of what you actually have to take care of on a run like this is really impressive. So please implement the dead sections, for example, in addition, and then you really have to do something when running the roads, not only operating throttle and the brakes. Spectre says thank you for the stream, see you next time. Thank you so much guys for staying with me, and actually see you next time, most probably again with Train Sim World. I still have to find out what to do there, but we will definitely go back to SimRail at the next possible opportunity, and maybe we will getting an update or a DLC or whatever. Yay, CD Raider says 4 going back to Train Sim World. Or yay for what? Well, I will just have a pick. Thank you so much. Have a good week, have a good time, take care.